Hello everyone, this is NPC's Economics. According to Lacey Hunt, an American economist who has an over 50-year career and is currently the executive vice president and chief economist of HIMCO, the United States is in a serious savings crisis.
First of all, when you look across the global economy, what is your assessment of how it's doing?
Poorly, very poorly. Take, for example, if you look at real per capita GDP, or the average of real per capita GDP and GDP, which is really the more appropriate thing to do, has been slowing. Now, however, we have an even more serious situation because we have negative national saving. I'm sure you remember that the circular flow, which says GDI equals GDP equals.
In the previous video, I said that personal saving is part of national saving. Households are an important part of the economy, but there are also businesses, nonprofits, the government, domestic and foreign investors. What is the net national saving? The net national saving has three components: private saving, which includes household and corporate savings; foreign saving, which is the inverse of the capital account; and government saving. Currently, the United States has a net negative national saving due to government's budget deficits. The negative government saving, which is actually a dis-saving, is greater than the private saving and foreign saving combined. When government debts increase, it expends more and more into unproductive things in the economy, and as a result, labor and natural resource extraction becomes less productive. And to increase labor and natural resource extraction, the United States needs to be given increased capital stock. Sure, the central bank can accelerate monetary growth and inflate the debt away, but additional monetary growth does not correct the fundamental problem of negative net national savings. What expansionary monetary policy has is an inflationary impact, and as seen emerging from the pandemic, it drove up asset prices such as housing and stocks. This increased the net worth of the privileged asset owner class while devastating modest and moderate income households as borrowing becomes more expensive, leading to an increase in the income and wealth divides ultimately. So, how can the United States avert the savings crisis? Obviously, that would be through the use of fiscal policy, that the government needs to spend less than it collects in tax revenues. But there is really no political will in Congress to do that. How else would they buy votes? No politician would conceivably suggest tightening government spending, such as reducing Medicare and Social Security spending, since that would be political suicide. Federal net outlays, or net federal government spending, have skyrocketed when the pandemic happened. Though to be fair, so have federal receipts, or federal government revenue. The problem is that the US government is like the stereotypically financially illiterate American who is balls deep in lifestyle creep, except on steroids. Federal outlays are made up of discretionary and non-discretionary spendings, as well as interest payments. The interest payment portion is yikes on the bikes. In just 3 years, the amount spent on servicing its debt every year climbed $426 billion from 2020 to 2023. In 2022, interest payments exceeded federal spending on the military-industrial complex, which itself is a large chunk of its discretionary budget. More on that later. And at the current trajectory, interest payments may very well surpass Social Security payments. And yet, interest payments is the smallest bucket of the outlays. Discretionary spending is the next bucket, which totaled $1.7 trillion in 2023. Discretionary spending is the total of the appropriated spendings from 12 broad areas. These are agriculture, commerce, justice and science, defense, aka the military-industrial complex, energy and water, financial services, homeland security, interior and environment, labor, human and health services and education, legislative branch, military construction and veteran affairs, state and foreign operations, and transportation and housing and urban development. Each year, both chambers of Congress need to pass the 12 appropriation bills individually, and then the president needs to sign the consolidated appropriations bill or the omnibus into law. Of that $1.7 trillion, almost half of it, $805 million, goes to feeding the military-industrial complex, plus an additional hundreds of millions of dollars going to feed the MIC-adjacent operations. Mandatory outlays account for the lion's share of spending, which was $3.8 trillion in 2023, just a bit less than the $4.4 trillion of revenue that the US government collected. Over half of that, or $2.2 trillion, goes to paying old people in the form of Medicare and Social Security. As the US population continues to age, an even bigger chunk than $2.2 trillion will be spent on Medicare and Social Security every year. But mandatory spending used to be lower than discretionary spending until the early 1970s, and then the two were pretty much in tandem. Mandatory spending overtook discretionary spending by the late 1980s, and the gap has been widening since then. And how much longer can the US government spend like a drunken sailor? Right now, GDP looks kind of rosy, but an increasingly bigger chunk of that is being propped up by government deficit spending. Currently, federal government outlays make up 22% of GDP, which, although is down quite a bit from 2020 due to obvious reasons, it is above the historical trend. It seems as receipts go up, expenditures go up even faster. That begs the question, does the US government have an income problem or a spending problem? So what do you think? If you like this video, please subscribe for more videos like this one, and let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye!